Value stream mapping is an incredibly powerful tool for leaning out your organization, saving money, delivering faster, and making work more rewarding. My name is Jeremy Webb. I'm the founder and CEO of Organizational Engineering and the creator of Minimalist Management. Today, I'm going to run you through a crash course on applying value stream mapping in any industry. In part 1, we'll cover a few of the basics about value stream mapping. Part 2 is all about how to create a value stream map. And in part 3, we'll discuss what to do after you create your map. If you want to jump to a specific question, check the description for timestamps and links. So what is value stream mapping? Well, creating a value stream map is basically just drawing a picture of how you deliver value to your customer from start to finish. Value stream maps are drawn in chronological order from left to right, and they focus on a single product or service. Value stream mapping comes from Toyota, but people at Toyota often refer to them as material and information flow diagrams. The information in a value stream map will vary based on what you're building or delivering, but it typically includes things like the amount of calendar time and person time each process in the system takes, the amount of inventory in the system at each step, and the amount of time people spend waiting. So you may be asking, why should I use value stream mapping? The goal of a VSM is to identify sources of waste so that you can eliminate them. In Toyota Ease, waste is called mutta, and mutta increases your delivery time and your costs. Mutta can also impact other factors like quality, employee engagement, and the environment. Value stream maps are often the best choice because they look at the entire flow instead of just one small part or an individual process like most other process diagrams and analysis tools. And this is important because when you optimize for a single process in your value stream by itself, you can cause delays and cost increases in other parts of the system. This is called sub-optimization. To give you a quick example, imagine if your IT department looked at their budget for internet and decided that they could save $100,000 per year by lowering the internet bandwidth. But when they lower that bandwidth, it causes issues for everyone that relies on the internet, and maybe the productivity loss in other groups is actually closer to $1 million per year. Now, this happens all of the time because most organizations operate in silos. But a value stream map looks at the whole picture, which helps you reduce your chances of sub-optimization. And one of the best parts about value stream mapping is that it doesn't cost anything aside from time that most companies recover quickly. Although it is generally worth bringing in an outside facilitator that is unbiased and has expertise in the process so that you can get the most out of the exercise. Where can you use value stream mapping? Value stream mapping was developed for manufacturing, but it can be used in a wide variety of industries and situations. For example, I've used it many times in the software world, and it works great with service organizations. You could use it to analyze the process for a doctor's office or for a call center, or if you're selling a training program. Really, anytime you have a repeatable process, you can use value stream mapping. But value stream mapping doesn't work as well when there are too many branches or alternative paths in your process, because it tends to make the maps overly complicated and the branches can skew the data. Now, you can work around some of these challenges by changing the start or the end point of your map or focusing on just one single stream within the map. As an example, if you have 6 products, instead of starting your map before the customer decides which product to buy, you could build a map for each of your products and start the maps at the point where the customer makes the purchase. How do I create a value stream map for my organization? I go about value stream mapping a little bit differently than a lot of folks, and that's because I tend to use value stream mapping outside of the manufacturing space. Plus, a lot of the people that I work with don't know all of the terms and symbols, so using the formal symbols would just add unnecessary confusion. If you want a more traditional approach, I'll drop a link in the description to a video from another channel that I thought was well done. But if you want a simple approach, stick around because I think you'll find this faster, simpler, more flexible, and easier to understand. Be sure to watch the tips portion too because it includes some important points that you need to know. Now, to get started, the first thing you need to do is get all of your steps in your value stream written down. If your team is all in person, just grab some Post-it notes and a wall or a whiteboard. And if you're virtual, open up a blank PowerPoint slide or a mural board or your favorite brainstorming tool. There aren't any hard and fast rules on where to start the stream, so pick a point that makes sense based on what you're looking to improve. If you start at the wrong point, you can always add something or take it away later. To give you an example of what this looks like, let's imagine that you're in a marketing company and it currently takes about a month to launch a new campaign for a client. Your clients want a faster ramp-up time so they can take advantage of short-term market opportunities, and your ad management process is more profitable than the campaign development, so you want to get people into ads as quickly as possible to increase your profits. So let's start by listing out all of the processes that have to be completed in the value stream. People in the room or on the call start calling out steps in the process or adding them directly to the list. You might end up with onboarding calls, ad creation, launching the ads, campaign strategy, customer purchases, and customer renewals. Now you need to put the steps in order. So it ends up looking something like this. The customer makes a purchase. You have an onboarding call. You create the campaign strategy. You create the ads. You launch the ads. And finally, the customer renews and the process repeats. Now, what you need to do is figure out how much time you spend working and waiting in each part of the cycle. Let's say onboarding takes 5 to 10 calendar days normally, so for this example, let's just call that 7.5 days. But it only takes 60 to 90 minutes of actual work, so we'll call that 75 minutes. Now that would mean you have 7.4 days of waiting time in the onboarding process, which is 98% of the total time for that process. Now write these numbers down and add a legend to your map so that everybody knows what each metric means, then move on to the next process. Maybe campaign strategy takes 2 people days, but averages 12.5 calendar days, and ad creation takes about the same amount of time. Launching the ads only takes about an hour of people time, but typically takes a full day of calendar time to complete. And renewing the customer takes about 3 hours of work, but it takes a full week of calendar time because of scheduling and delays on the customer side. Now, when you put all of this together, your team is doing 4.7 days of work over 33.5 calendar days, which means that 86% of your time is spent waiting. And that's introducing a lot of waste into your system. If your system includes any kind of inventory or partially completed work, you should also include those metrics after each process on your map. You've just created a basic value stream map. It's not a formal value stream map that includes information flows and all the bits and pieces, but look at how much information you have already. And just imagine what you can do with this information, which we'll cover in part 3. But before we get there, I want to give you a few quick tips for successful value stream mapping. First, get the right people in the room. The point of value stream mapping is to change your process. And to make that happen, you need the people creating the VSM to have the authority to make changes. If your team is empowered, it could be team members, but otherwise, your department heads should either be doing the activity themselves or should be present for it so that they gain a full understanding. You may even want to include their managers too, or even the CEO, depending on the organization size. Second, use real data. Sometimes it takes significant effort to get the data, but if you don't have real data, the exercise doesn't work. And if you don't have that data available already, you'll need to give people the time to capture it either before you begin or after you create your first pass of the VSM. The data doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but it should be good enough to give you a reasonable representation of reality. Third, give yourself plenty of time for this exercise. It can often take 2 or 3 days to create the first map and to discuss what steps you should take after it's created. And if you need to gather data, the entire process may need to be done over multiple weeks. And last, make sure you have a skilled and unbiased facilitator. A good facilitator will save you time and will help you develop creative solutions you likely wouldn't consider on your own. Now that you have your value stream map created, it's time to start looking at process improvement. Let's go back to the marketing company example and look at the onboarding call and campaign strategy processes. We can see that the campaign strategy takes 12.5 calendar days, but only 2 working days to create. So we need to understand what's happening and why it's happening. And that means doing some root cause analysis. In root cause analysis, you start with a problem that you want to investigate and simply ask why that thing is happening. Then you do it again and again until you get to an answer. So with our campaign strategy, our initial problem is that it takes 12.5 days to do 2 days worth of work. Why? Well, in this case, it's because campaign strategies require interactions with the customer, and it takes time to get on their schedule. Okay, so why does it take so long? Well, because our customers are busy, and it takes at least a week to get on their schedules after the onboarding call. Okay, then why are we waiting until after the onboarding call to schedule campaign strategy calls? Well, because sales schedules the onboarding call when they make the sale, but the campaign team handles booking the strategy calls. Aha! We've just discovered what seems to be a root cause, and now we can start to create some proposals on how to fix it. For example, what if we ask sales to go ahead and book the strategy call when they book the onboarding call? Or what if we ask the campaign people to reach out to the client right after the onboarding call gets scheduled instead of waiting until after the onboarding call has occurred? Maybe we want to leave some buffer in case there are delays with the onboarding process, but we could still cut at least 5 days or maybe even more out of the overall process and it wouldn't cost us anything. Now that's what I'm talking about. Now sometimes it really is that easy to find solutions, but in other cases the root cause may not be so obvious and the solution may be way more complicated and expensive to implement. But you don't know until you've done the analysis. And once you've done the analysis and made a change or two, your system will be different. And that means you'll need to revise or recreate your value stream map. I typically give new changes about 6 weeks for everything to smooth out before I take new measurements and assess the effectiveness of any changes. If your system needs a lot of work, you'll want to repeat this cycle until you're where you want to be. And even if you haven't made any changes, you may want to repeat this process at your quarterly, semi-annual, or annual planning sessions. If you have any additional questions, drop them in the comments below or reach out with the contact information on our website, organizationalengineering.com. Don't forget to give us a like and to subscribe. See you in the next one.